You know, Mike, this movie is from 1982 and it's on Prime Video with the opportunity to have American, I always call it American subtitles. I don't know why. English subtitles. And you can spend a whopping $2 to rent it. It feels like a steal, frankly. A true steal to rent this movie for $2 and watch it.
Until you start to watch those English subtitles.
Oh, yeah.
Right? These are worse than what I used to experience with Hong Kong films. This is English via India.
Yeah, it's like someone ran the Tamil script of the movie through a Tamil to English translator and was like, yeah, this is good enough. Like, I'm not going to actually go through and make sure these make sense. Yeah. You'll figure it out. You're watching the movie anyways. Like, that's what it feels like. It's like you're watching the movie anyways. And, you know, we talk about this on the Bollywood Cinema Club. The reason we're doing Indian Cinema Month and the Kulturecast so early this year is because we've launched the Bollywood Cinema Club, which you can go check out over at BollywoodCinemaClub.com. I try not to let the way we watch these movies affect the way I feel about them, but we have to be honest here. It's 2023, and this movie, while it is on Prime Video, is in a state of disrepair, undeserving of a movie of this film's caliber, the way this film was regarded when it came out, the way it's seemingly still regarded now in a lot of ways, especially in regards to Balu Marendra's career. It's weird that this movie, again, similarly to some of the other Indian cinema films that I've talked about on this show and on the Bollywood Cinema Club, it's like impossible to find in a way that is rewarding to watch it. It feels like a slog to watch this movie because it's just no care was put into the English subtitles.
No, I spent so much time live translating in my head that there were some times where I'm like, oh, wait, what was that next line? Oh, I missed again. So, I'm used to bad subtitles, so it wasn't too distracting. It's just I kind of had to get the gist of each line, and luckily it's not super heavy on twists and turns and plot things that really rely on the spoken word, thank goodness.
Right. So on this episode of the Kulturecast, we are kicking off Indian Cinema Month, or continuing it, I guess, more aptly. I am still your host, much to the chagrin of many, Chris Stachiw. I am joined by my good friend all the way from the internet's best movie podcast, Mike White of the Projection Booth.
Chris, I'm so glad to be here with you, sir.
I think you're glad to be here, but maybe not to talk about this. Again, I don't want to kind of throw dirt on the movie already, but like, again, we'll talk about it. We're going to be talking about 1982's film that Balu Marendra ended up just remaking a couple years after the fact with Sadma, but we're talking about the original version of the film that he made, 1982's Tamil language romantic drama, Moondram Pirai. So, like I mentioned, the film is written and directed by Balu Marendra, and it stars Kamal Hassan as Srinivas and Sri Devi as VG. We'll just call her that because that's what she's known as for most of the movie. And Sri Devi plays
She's a woman of many names.
Yes, she is. The VG is the name that's easier to say than Bhag Lakshmi, but Bhaga Lakshmi is played by Sri Devi, and she's out with some friends, and she has a head injury that causes her to have amnesia, and she ends up regressing into the state of a child, and then is kidnapped and sold to a brothel where she meets Kamal Hassan's Srinivas, they strike up a romance, and well, ladies and gentlemen, that's where the movie goes from there. It goes kind of all over the place, but it's an interesting film. So, Mike, I'm going to turn the floor over to you. I'm going to assume you didn't see this movie before any more than I had, but what did you think of Moondram Pirai?
Well, I had seen this movie before, and it starred Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn. She was kind of a jerk, and she was on a boat, and she fell over, and he was a repairman, and he ends up taking her home to his kids and reintroduces her and basically makes a whole new life for her at that point. Yeah, we were talking about the Indian overboard here. Though I have to say this one's a little bit more sinister than, I mean, Overboard itself is pretty sinister, but this one is even more sinister. Just that this, I mean, the guy picks her up at a brothel, buys her from the brothel, and then takes her home. But he does seem to have a heart of gold. But yeah, no, I had never seen this film before. I didn't realize that it was remade again shortly hereafter. I'd be curious to see that. You know, we talked recently about China Gate, which had the one song right in the middle of it. I didn't have to worry about a lack of songs in this one, that we open up with this whole musical number at a beach. I was kind of hooked from the beginning.
Yeah, you know, I'm with you. The movie's interesting because, yeah, you know, it gets remade literally the next year with the exact same leads. Kamal Hassan and Sri Devi are in Sadma, playing the exact same characters, but it's a Hindi language film as opposed to Tamil. So it's North Indian versus, you know, Southern Indian. All of that aside, the fact that there is a remake of this movie, I enjoyed this movie. It is very fucked up, beyond fucked up, frankly, in a lot of ways. Just the machinations that the characters go through, seemingly without any sort of moral problems, moral compunctions, that they just don't seem to care. What they're doing is admittedly really terrible in essentially every way. I like that about the movie, but it also hurts my enjoyment of the movie because I kind of had a hard time getting on board with anybody, because everybody other than Sri Devi feels differing shades of kind of terrible, and or just like not maybe explicitly terrible, but more just like because they're hands off, it's more implicit how terrible they are, that they just don't care what's going on.
The kind of luckily she doesn't act like a child too much, but that voice, the voice that she chooses to do, that's a real choice. And that was pretty distracting through most of it, to the point where towards the end, Andrea was yelling at the TV. So it's something. But yeah, I ended up enjoying this as well, despite how quote unquote problematic some of it is. I swear I paid attention to this, but the whole thing with, I guess it's his boss and his boss's wife, that kind of hotsy-totsy sex pot lady, I didn't know where that came in. It was just like suddenly they cut to these two people in bed, and I'm just like, where are these people from? Did I just check out mentally? Did I have a head injury?
The headmaster's wife, that's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah. Okay, is a headmaster?
I guess so. I mean, that again, like, that's the problem with this movie, that we can't do anything about it other than reading the synopsis for the movie and doing the research that we would be doing for a show like this. We can't fix the subtitles. We're not that technically gifted, and I don't speak Tamil, let alone Hindi. So right. It is, some of the character interactions are very hard to understand because, like you mentioned, not only are the subtitles poorly translated, but at sometimes it feels like it's not even, it feels like it doesn't even make sense, let alone poorly translated. Just I guess just like weird things that I don't know how to explain weird things that they're saying, other than saying they're just saying things that literally don't make any sense.
Right.
And that makes it hard for me to follow the entire plot of the movie outside of Srinivas and Vijay's relationship. Everything else kind of just, I'm having a hard time following along because on Amazon Prime Video, the subtitles are so bad. Like, it's hard to understand what else is happening other than she has the amnesia and is now a child, supposedly. Magical reasoning. That's what it feels like.
Yeah. And there's the, I guess he's a woodcutter who just suddenly shows up at some point and he becomes a threat. And that scene is so harrowing. And I'm just like, oh my God, get me out of this movie, because we've gone from like kind of light and fluffy where the only thing that really upsets Chinu is when she spills ink on some papers. And it's just like, oh, wow, this is a big deal that there's ink on papers. And then like 2 scenes later, she's about to be raped. I was just like, whoa, whoa, whoa. We've just raised the stakes here quite a bit.
Well, and another movie that I just recently watched, that's an Indian cinema film, Ishq, has a similar thing where it's a romantic comedy ostensibly, but then all of a sudden one of the main characters is about to be raped. And it's like, what? Whoa, movie. Like, I get that you can just, again, there's part of Indian cinema that feels very matter of fact in its presentation of things. Like, that's just the way it is. This is just life. People get shot. And when you get shot, you bleed. It's not like in Western cinema, at least PG-13 stuff where you can get shot and not bleed. Like, you see that in plenty of PG-13 movies where characters are just shot and no blood, no nothing, no actual, effect being shown, just shot, fall down, whatever. Like, Indian cinema is not interested in sanitizing it. They want it to just be seemingly presented matter-of-factly. And it's jarring, to say the least.
Oh, yeah.
Really jarring.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels like it comes out of nowhere. And then I end up becoming upset when the guy isn't punished nearly enough. In my mind, he's not punished nearly enough. It's just like, Chinu finds him, takes him, like beats him up a little bit, but really there's no justice that happens in this movie. And I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, I guess that kind of speaks to the end of the film as well, which is, yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
It's weird. Like, this movie in a lot of ways understands at least what it's trying to do and the story it's trying to tell. Is it a tonal mess? Yes, in a way it is, but it's less of a tonal mess than I was expecting. And I think that's because it doesn't bother itself with trying to be cute or funny in a way, because Ishq was like, all right, well, it's a romantic comedy that has action, so there will be funnier beats and there will be a character that is the comedic relief of the film. This movie is not bothering itself with any of that. This movie is like more or less serious throughout, but the levels of seriousness that it's kind of playing by kind of vacillates throughout the movie. And to go from, okay, this woman is in a car accident and she has amnesia, fantastical realism, because like I guess don't really think that this happens this way, but okay, maybe. But then to go from that to, like you said, murder and physical harm and rape, and it's like, whoa, movie, like pump the brakes a little bit. These things are not equal in their level of seriousness that you are approaching them with. Yeah.
I ended up enjoying this film. I mean, I did make a mention to you the other day as far as like, oh, be careful of those subtitles because they are something. But I am thinking back on this movie very fondly. It's not like I had problems with it. Yeah, it was tonally all over the place at times, but I mean, ultimately, yeah, it's an interesting love story. I mean, it's her way, but he is trying to help her and is trying to get her memory back. So I guess he has good intentions. It just takes him a long time before he figures out how he can do that and ends up kind of using, you said magical realism, kind of using magical means to cure her.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, you mentioned, it is a love story, and it does have a very kind of, I feel, very cynical ending. But I think it kind of, again, if you're looking at the movie and the story that it's telling in a frame of realism, I feel like the movie kind of shoots itself in the foot by saying, all right, well, there's magical realism and there's real realism here, because any other movie would have her at the end recognizing him through the machinations of the things that he's doing, because that in and of itself is magical realism. That it's like in It, right? Where he's riding the bike down the hill and all of a sudden she remembers everything. Like, that's not how that works. And it never will be. But in a narrative sense, it totally works that way. And it planting and payoff, just like Richard always says. The movie, I think, it's what's interesting about the movie is it wants to, again, have it both ways. It wants to have the magical realism of a woman getting into a car accident and hitting her head, therefore she forgot everything. But at the same time, it wants to have it where she can be cured and then doesn't remember anything. And it's like, whoa, movie, hold on a second. Like you're trying to have it literally both ways.
Yeah, I can't remember who said it, but like that there have been far more many people in movies that have had amnesia than real actual cases of amnesia. So, I mean, this is definitely movie amnesia. So the whole like, oh, I'm not going to remember who you are now, even though you're doing this monkey dance with the pot on your head and stuff, which really is endearing. I mean, when Chinu does that a few times, it's like, okay, this really works. And especially when they have a bit of a row later on and then he ends up doing that for her to make her smile. It was a very cute scene.
I guess the optics are strange, though, because like you mentioned, Sri Devi is doing this voice as VG. That is a choice. Like you said, it's a total choice. It is a choice. It is evoking the singing style that you would expect with the music, where it's the woman's voice is very high pitched, and it's not like, you know, being auto-tuned. It's just a very high pitched, you know, voice. It's just not done. The lines of dialogue normally aren't delivered with that voice, and it becomes so grating so quickly that it becomes, after a while, you almost forget that you're watching an adult and you're watching a literal child, because again, it's such a choice that you would have to hope to God that the actress, like, she understood what she was doing, because it makes everything slightly creepier. It makes everything just slightly more off-putting that she has this very, it doesn't help the movie's case of trying to make Kamal Hassan and Sri Devi's romance endearing. It doesn't make it endearing. It makes it very uncomfortable. It makes it more uncomfortable than it would have been if she had just been doing a normal voice, because he's attracted to her and is not put off by the fact that she acts like a child. And that's kind of strange.
Yeah.
What does that mean, right? Like, what does that mean?
At least she's not overly sexualized, which I like. There was one part where he's fantasizing about her putting on the sari and then coming to the doorway and looking kind of great in the sari, and then cut to reality and she doesn't know how to put the sari on. She's just a mess. And I was like, okay, well, that's good that he's not, you know, he has this woman living with him. I don't think they ever consummate their relationship. I hope not anyway, because yeah, she does act like a child. I'm glad that there are, you know, I'm always curious when it comes to amnesia stories. It's like, well, what can you remember? What can't you remember? Do you remember your mom and dad? Do you remember who do you remember? What do you remember? Do you even know how to speak language? You know, like, where does your memory stop at? Are you a completely different person? Which it feels like VG is a completely different person than the other form of her, the non-amnesia form of her. I think I was putting more thought in this movie than I needed to, but that's one thing that always goes through my mind when I'm watching these amnesia stories.
Well, but to your point, I mean, these movies, most of the time, this movie doesn't, thankfully, and I think it's actually to the benefit of the film that it doesn't really bother itself with the rules, because the moment you start bothering yourself with the rules is the moment you're undoubtedly just going to start breaking them, because you're introducing them to break them, as opposed to introducing them just to give the audience an idea of the limitations of the story. Most of the time they're being told so that, oh, well, there's no way she could remember. And then, you know, she would remember him at the end of the movie. There's none of that, which I appreciate. But at the same time, I'm not a fan of these amnesia stories, because they're always the same. Even this one is the same. Ultimately, just like, like you said, like, Overboard, or even something like 50 First Dates, which is still an amnesia story. Like, all of these amnesia stories are always going to do the same thing, which is you have to suspend your own belief, essentially, to the point of, in my opinion, amnesia movies push me to the limit of suspension disbelief as an audience goer. Do you know what I mean? Like, it pushes me to the edge, and I don't really like that, because I have a hard time buying into this movie's conceit of how amnesia works, because it wants, in the way that the movie plays out, it almost has to work in a way that's so unrealistic that like you said, nobody could have amnesia like this for real.
Right. Well, yeah, and amnesia is such a tenuous thing as anyway. I mean, it's kind of like I know that multiple personality disorder is a real thing, but I think, again, more people have multiple personalities in movies than there are actual documented cases.
It's exceedingly rare in the way movies make it work. But man, I'm glad that there exist things in real life that can be played up for thematic effect. It's just like nobody has ever done anything particularly novel or creative with it. Like even this movie, as much as I enjoyed this movie, it's not really bucking the trend of amnesia romantic films. Again, This movie has plenty in common with other Western amnesia driven films. It maybe in those movies, the female character is not acting like a child explicitly, but anytime someone has amnesia to the point of forgetting how to do things, they might as well be a child.
Yeah, I'm always like, well, do you know how to, and just like, do you know how to iron, or like what do you remember, what don't you? So
right,
when she comes to this situation, it's like, well, obviously she doesn't remember how to put on a sari, so that's one thing. But there are other things where I'm just like, is she aware of this? Does she know what's going on? Would she know what that word means? Is that why the subtitles are so bad? Is that she's speaking some sort of weird English or weird Tamil?
Your metatextual analysis of the movie, I think you may be doing the movie's job for it, frankly.
Right.
but that is always kind of the question I come back to, like, what are the limitations of her ability to remember? And again, when the movie doesn't want to bother itself with it, that's fine. But then the movie bothers itself with it in the climax to the point where it's like, no, she doesn't remember anything now. It's like, whoa, wait a second. Like this is just so kind of hokey. Again, as long as I'm buying into it, which I more or less do, for the most part, the way the movie decides to handle it is just, again, it's not anything new. I wish it would have been. I wish the movie would have done even one thing kind of different than other amnesia romantic films have done. I will say, though, I think you might agree with me, I do appreciate that the movie does kind of end so strangely, because the movie ends in a very bizarre way. Like not to say I wasn't expecting it, because it's really one of two outcomes, right? Like it's one or the other. And most of the time with these kinds of romantic movies, but my God, the fact that the movie goes for it, I applaud that to the end, because it's like, we talked about Perinda. And that movie has an equally kind of gut punch ending in a different direction. Like this movie is a gut punch at the end, and it has no problem not only punching you in the gut at the end of the movie, but like continuing to kick you over and over again. Like Chinu is thrown through the ringer by the end of the movie, and then some even.
Well, yeah, I mean, you think it's bad enough that he falls, that he is, that the police are after him, that he falls in the mud, that he screws up his ankle, that he's just like dragging himself to town, that whole like, you can't leave town before, I see you one last time type of thing. And then, that she doesn't remember him. It's like, oh man. Yeah, I couldn't believe just how down and out this guy is.
Well, and they keep showing these like great shots of like a close-up shot of him looking at her in the train. And like you said, he's covered in mud. He's covered in blood. He's standing in a crowd of other people trying to get her attention. There's all these people around him that are kind of taking note of him, but not really, which I kind of appreciate that they're sharing this moment in a crowd and the crowd is not making note of it. The crowd's not like standing around watching them have this interaction. It's very mundane in the way that it's presented. And I appreciate that the movie has no issue with taking our character and just leaving him at his wit's end. Because like, who knows where he goes after the final frames of this movie, but he's literally sitting in the mud at the end of the movie, like kicking the rocks, like, oh, shucks type thing. Like, oh man, like what a fucking bummer is where the character's left. And I don't see that often in Western entertainment, where the main character is not given a happy ending. This movie has a very down ending. It could be interpreted as happy. VG goes back to being Lakshmi, which Lakshmi seemed like a perfectly normal young woman who was having fun with her friends. So it is a happy ending, because realistically, Like her and Chinu, like she got away, really. Like that's the thing. Like, are we supposed to feel bad for Chinu as a character? That's the question that the movie is kind of asking us as an audience. Like, how do you feel about someone who does this? And while the movie ends on kind of a down note, I think it's the right ending for the character of VG, given that she gets away from this nightmare scenario she kind of was thrust into of no fault of her own.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that's a 2023 interpretation. I think I would have been saying that at the time watching this. Like, I think they did the right thing because, them as a romantic couple at the end, I think I would have had a lot of problems with that.
Well, and what is that saying? Like, what is that saying about that relationship and how that relationship came into existence if the movie is tacitly, rubber stamping, it's okay, and you should be okay with it? It's like, you're telling me it's not okay. It's not okay. And I'm glad that the movie says it isn't okay, to the point where we're going to give her every opportunity to recognize him, and she doesn't. And then that's it. Like, that there is something to be said for a movie really taking a stand, and this movie does. And I really, really appreciate that, because it doesn't give you as the viewer the ending that you think you want, but it definitely gives the character of VG the ending that she deserves, and in a lot of ways the ending that Chinu deserves. Even if he's trying to do the right thing, you can't help but wonder if there is just a undercurrent of him being a total fucking creep.
Yeah, he feels almost kidnapper-esque, right?
And I wonder, like, if this movie was made, if this movie were remade in Western cinema, because yes, this movie is remade in 1983 as Sadma. It's the same movie. The movie ends the same way. It's telling the same story, same actors even. If this movie were made for Western cinema, they would really, I think, play up the he's a creep angle. It would lean on it more, because the movie really doesn't give us the idea or the notion that we should be interpreting Chinu as a creep, or a pederast, I guess. I mean, again, she's of legal age, best we can tell, but he's attracted to her because she's acting like a child. Like, if it were a Western movie, I feel like it would take a kind of more of a strong stance and maybe characterize him in a more sinister way. I mean, it's sinister in this, but it's not overtly sinister.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's funny that, Overboard is played as a comedy, and I watched it recently for the first time, and I actually didn't have any problems with it. I was like, am I going to think that this is really nasty and kind of rapey and taking advantage of her? I was actually okay with it. And then I watched the remake of it, which I think I like the remake even more, which is so unusual for anybody to say those words. But especially with this, I was just like, wow, this is pretty good. The whole gender swap thing kind of put a fine point on some of the stuff from the earlier one.
And I would love to see a gender swapped version of this story. I think this would be, I would be curious to see how I would interpret a story where it's a male character who's acting like a child and a female character who's kind of, looking after him. Maybe it wouldn't be as kind of off-putting, because it would be more maternal in a way. Because this, I mean, again, like, I feel like paternal relationships, at least female and male paternal relationships, are always very strange and mined for nefarious things in media for the most part. I mean, look at something like Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, right? Or so many of those like mystery novels that involved incest and abuse by, mothers and fathers, more normally fathers on their daughters. So I wonder, because again, like, that's what I can't help but think about when I watch this movie, is that the weird kind of undercurrent of pederasty and just being kind of creepy towards people younger than you that are in the teenage variety. I wonder if I would feel the same way if it had been, gender swapped.
Yeah. As soon as you mention that, my mind goes to The Professional, and I'm just like, I had such problems watching that the first time, and I've never gone back to it. It's like, I don't need the sexualization of this little girl.
Boy, that is a movie I had not seen until last year, and I had similar issues. I mean, I enjoyed the movie, but I enjoyed the movie because Jean Reno is amazing. But that relationship is off-putting, and there's no way you couldn't convince me it's not. No matter what Luc Besson's peridelictos are in his own fucking life, like, I don't care. That's a creepy relationship that you're presenting, that you're expecting us to kind of just rubber stamp it and say it's okay. And I have a hard time with it in that movie, just like I do with this movie, even though in this movie she's not actually a kid. It's just she's presenting as one, and she's presented as one.
Right. And I'm glad that they don't dress her up or make her look younger. I was really afraid of that. Like, oh, what's she going to do? Put pigtails in her hair? I was like, please don't. The voice was bad enough. But yeah, I'm glad that it, like I said, they don't
I wanted to ask you though, I know neither one of us have more or less or more than likely seen him in anything, but what did you think of Kamal Hassan in the lead role?
Well, he's got a very interesting look about him. I don't know, the mustache, I don't know if it's doing him many favors or not. Because he's got kind of I don't want to say pointy nose, but he's got a very pronounced regal Roman nose, I would say. He reminded me a little bit of like an Indian version of David Statham. Just kind of like very distinct look. I thought he definitely carried himself very well, and I did care about his character. I thought he presented well as far as like he does have a lot of anger, and he does get angry quite a bit, and so he was able to bring that as well as the humor. And like I said, I really like the scene where he's trying to make up with her, and he's doing the whole monkey thing. So I thought he did a really good job. What did you think of him?
I liked him a lot. I'm not going to say that he's not. I'm not going to say he's not in the caliber of people like Amir Khan and Shah Rukh Khan and Amitabh. Like I think, and doing research about him, like he is a contemporary of Rajnikant. So, he's coming up around the same time that Rajnikant is and kind of making a name for himself in, again, mostly Tamil cinema. I think he's great. Again, I think to your point, yeah, maybe I don't know, his look is not helping his perception in the movie. I don't think. I think he looks like a creep. Stash. Yeah, he looks like a creep. Like he just does. Like I think that choice may kind of work against his character, but he plays hangdog perfectly. And that last scene in the movie, even if it is kind of, if you sit and think about it for more than a second, which the movie I think is expecting you to, given how long it forces you to watch that scene, I think he plays sinister ? Well enough that there is kind of a question as to what his intentions are. But I think ultimately Kamal Hassan is so charismatic that I don't really think he's up to anything more nefarious than what we're seeing him do, which is kind of, again, your interpretation of how nefarious is going to really vary from person to person. But I don't think he at his core is a terrible person. And I think a lot of that goes to Kamal Hassan's performance just being so charismatic. And again, in those scenes with him and Vijay just having a conversation, you can tell that he cares about her and he's not just trying to take advantage of her sexually, but he might be.
Right. Yeah. Luckily, he doesn't feel very lustful. I mean, he is visiting that brothel, but it feels like it's on his friend's behest rather than his idea of it.
And I think the thing that for me is the bigger missed opportunity, but again, the way the narrative is being told, it more or less necessitates it. It's Kamal Hassan and Sri Devi's movie almost entirely. Like there's really nobody else. I mean, you do have her parents, but they effectively bookend the movie. You have the woodcutter, you have the wife of the headmaster, but really this is Kamal Hassan and Sri Devi's movie from minute 1 until minute, 143 or whatever it is. So, I mean, the fact that you have the two leads that you do, and they're so good. I mean, we didn't really even talk about Sri Devi, but my God, she's amazing as well. And she has a huge range too. She's in all kinds of movies. And on top of everything else, again, really well regarded in her own right in that industry, not only in Tamil film, but also Hindi, to the point where she's regarded as the first female superstar of Indian cinema. And yes, the voice in this movie is not doing her any favors, but she is really great in this movie. And she died in 2018 at 54, which is such a shame. Such a shame.
Wow. I hadn't read about that. So that is terrible.
Yeah, it's awful. She's fucking 54, man. Like, geez Louise. That's a shame because she's a fantastic actress. Like, and the fact that she's in this and then she is cast in the sequel, the spiritual sequel, a remake, I guess more or less a remake, but spiritual sequel to the movie. Like the fact that they're still the leads, I think speaks volumes to her ability as an actress. It really does. And Kamal Hassan's ability as an actor as well. But this is the first time I've seen her in anything. And I'm looking forward to seeing her in more things where they're not hampering her with the voice of Beaker for whatever reason.
I was explaining it as Minnie Mouse.
Yeah, but like if Minnie Mouse were worse, like
right.
If somehow Minnie Mouse was worse than Minnie Mouse is. So,
But yeah, overall, I liked it. I don't know if I'll track down any of the remakes because I feel like they told the story pretty darn well at this point, so I don't really need to see it again. But yeah, I would be more than willing to see more of this director's stuff, more of Sridevi's work, even Kamal Hassan's work.
And there's plenty. I mean, again, that's the thing about this movie. For as hard as this movie is to find and as low quality as the subtitles are, this is an early entry into all three of their careers that would really be kind of a calling card. Probably Sadma, I think, more so. But again, like Sadma doesn't exist without this. So it's almost kind of unimportant that there's a remake of this because this still exists regardless of the remake. And the remake essentially just telling the same story anyways. So nobody thought that what this was problematic or unentertaining enough to really change it. So again, that's the thing. Like, this is a really good starting point for all three of their careers. And Sridevi had been working as a child actress even. So that, I mean, she's working from 67 on, but Kamal Hassan and Bahu Marendra still working, still making things in 2023. So, again, that's the thing about a lot of this cinema that we as Westerners just, I've never seen any of their other movies before. And now I'm just so excited to see more. Like, this movie's great, but I'm sure that there are movies that they're all in that are even better. But that's not to say this isn't good on its own, because it is. Like, this would be a good film to watch even if it weren't Indian cinema. It's just, it being Indian cinema adds that flavor that I really appreciate, that I think works, overall for the movie. The songs, for sure. Even if the songs tonally just kind of, they feel tonally at odds with what the movie is trying to say about the relationship between the two leads, but it's not unwelcome and they're very catchy. So
yeah, I really like the music in this, especially that opening song. I thought that was a banger. And yeah, I feel like even with the really shitty subtitles, this was $2 well spent to rent this thing.
Yeah. The music is from Ilayarja Raja, who is known as the maestro. That is how well regarded he is as someone who makes, as a composer for Indian cinema. So again, like, everybody here is operating on all cylinders. Everybody here, I think, really turns in a fantastic performance. Like, again, I really hate having to say it's hard to find, but it is. It is. It's hard to find, even though it's not. Like, you can't do any better than where we found it. It's just, it feels like a shame that there's not something else, that there's not a Arrow or Vinegar or anything. And I'm waiting for them to really start dipping their toes into Indian cinema in a way that Criterion already has with stuff like Monsoon Wedding and Charulata. Like, I'm waiting for more Western DVD boutique publishers to start seeing Indian cinema and bringing it to Westerners, because there's plenty of movies that are just versions of our films that exist out there. Not alone just a complete unique creation, but plenty of movies that are just American films being redone in India. So the fact that those haven't even really made it over in a substantive way is surprising, just for the novelty alone of those. But then you look at something like this and it's like, this is ripe for Criterion or somebody else to reappraise it. So at least it's on Prime Video, I guess.
I know Mondo Macabro is putting out a few Indian horror titles. I'm not sure what those are offhand. But yeah, I'm hoping that with the success of RRR that we start to see more people looking at Indian cinema that would not have seen it before, other than having it, kind of handed to them with this wonderful new film. And hopefully now they'll go back. But I don't see them immediately diving into Moondram Pirai, but I mean, it's not a bad place to go.
No, and it's, you and I did an episode for Bollywood Cinema Club on Triple R, and you and I haven't talked about it since, but it feels like since we talked about it, it's become like a thing, like an actual thing here in the West. Like, people I know who never would have talked to me about it or thought about watching it have asked me, should I watch it? Should I check it out? And it's like, oh my, I'm so excited. Even if it is just effectively a big budget, Marvel adjacent action movie adjacent movie, like that's a good enough entry point for so many people. And my hope is that it's not just that was a fun diversion and now back to the office. I hope that was a fun diversion. Now let me go watch Bahubali or Doom or any of the multitude of movies that are on Netflix and Prime Video, because that's where Triple R is. Like that for me, like it was crazy to hear people that I know talking about Triple R without me prompting them to talk about it.
Yeah, it was kind of like that Squid Game Netflix effect where it's like people who were watching the Squid Games would never normally watch a Korean drama, wouldn't watch, I know they have a dubbed version of it, but wouldn't watch a subtitled film. And same thing with our Triple R, having that just so available for people right there on their main source of entertainment. It's quite an effect.
Well, and to the point where N.T. Ramarao Jr. is talking to Kevin Feige and he's like, cast us in a Marvel movie, motherfucker. Like, and he's like had those conversations with Kevin Feige. Like that to me speaks volumes to the penetration of Triple R into the Western consciousness. And to the point where Western companies are seeing India and Indian cinema as something that more Westerners would totally be on board with.
I would not be surprised if Natu ends up winning, or at least is going to be featured as best song at the Oscars.
Totally should. That is talk about a song that is so good just on its own.
Yeah, that one showed up on my Amazon playlist the other day, and it came out of nowhere, and I was just like, is this? Oh, yeah. I was just having such fun listening to that song in the car.
And that's the thing, like that for me is like something like Natu, like just how much fun it is, I think comes across to the Western audiences who have been watching Triple R or Bahubali or some of those other kind of, even Brahmastra, even on Hulu. Like all of those movies are going to, I hope, and have, at least with Triple R's case, giving us on this side of the globe a reason to totally go check out thousands of movies that so many of us, myself included, have never seen and have a place in their culture that would be totally worth us understanding and being able to kind of like applaud that it exists and enjoy it ourselves for what we get out of it. Like the fact that Triple R is pushing that narrative seemingly is really exciting for me. And I'm excited to, continue to be part of a movement of people in the West who are really pushing for Indian cinema to be appreciated by people here. Because there's no reason, like subtitles is a bad fucking reason to not watch something. I'm sorry. It just is. That doesn't speak. If you know what, watch the movies without the subtitles, then pretend you understand what's going on. Like if that's really what it's got to take, like you can watch Triple R without the subtitles on. And I think you could still walk away from it understanding what's going on and understanding who is who and who is being situated as the villain and the hero and everything else. Maybe you won't understand the complexities of it, but I think something like that's well written enough that you can understand the broad strokes. I think you could even do that with Moondram Pirai, and we clearly did.
Yeah. Yes, we did.
We clearly did. We clearly had to figure it out, more or less, and we did.
We took that bullet.
Yeah.
So yes.
Yeah. So Mike, final thoughts on Moondram Pirai?
I'm really glad that we saw this. I'm very thankful to discuss this one with you. Like I said, I thought at first I wasn't going to enjoy it, but I ended up digging it. And yeah, I will think back on this one fondly. So thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, I'm curious to watch the remake only because I would like to see what they do differently. But from best I can tell and best I've read, it doesn't sound like much, which is why I wasn't like, let's watch both, because they're both 2 hours plus, and that's a lot. That's a lot for effectively the same narrative. Not like, oh, it's kind of the same thing. Like, no, it's literally the same thing. So, like, again, it's just in Hindi as opposed to Tamil. So, again, I didn't see the need, but I'm curious to see what they do differently. But at the same time, there's so many other Indian cinema films that like I kind of want to watch something I've already seen. Let's watch something else. Like, let's watch something new. Because holy shit, if I'm rewatching American things that I know, like how many Western things have I rewatched in the last 6 months? And I could have been watching something new every time, at least Western cinema. And Indian cinema, I haven't even scratched the surface. Like, I'm not going to go rewatch the same thing I've seen there when there's 800 million other new, exciting, and strange, fun things to watch. So yeah, fun movie. Don't know if I'll ever revisit it, but I would like to eventually get around to watching the remake.
Good way to end it.
Yeah. So on that note, we'll take a break and we'll play a preview for the next Kulturecast of Indian Cinema Month. That's right. On the next Kulturecast of Indian Cinema Month, we're going to be watching a film that shockingly doesn't require subtitles to enjoy because it is a dialogue-free Indian cinema film. Mike is asking, why wasn't I on that episode? But on the next Kulturecast, we're going to be talking about Pushpaka Vimana, and I'm going to be joined by, well, mine and Mike's co-host over at the Rankin' on Bass podcast, which you can find on the Weirding Way Media Network, everybody's favorite writer of DC Titans, I guess executive producer now, good old Richard Hatem. God only knows what he's going to have to say, but I'm excited because if we weren't excited to talk about this, why are we doing this? So on that note, Mike, where can people find you when you're doing what you do best?
You can find me over at projectionboothpodcast.com, where every week I've got a new episode. This week, Chris, I'm going crazy. I'm releasing new episodes every single day.
My God, man.
I'm giving them away. It's wild.
For free? Like you have been for the last decade?
Exactly.
Wait, you're telling me that we make this content for free?
And then people complain about the ads.
Well, I don't know if you know this, but don't interfere with my consumption of your free content by asking me to support you.
It's very rude.
Actively or passively. Either way, don't bother me. Don't fucking bother me. As for all the things that I work on, weirdingwaymedia.com, that's where you can find Mike's show, The Projection Booth, and so many other shows that you should totally be checking out, including, but not limited to, Richard Hatem's wife's show, 80s TV Ladies, Father Malone's narrative-based Astounding Tales of the Public Domain, and so many other shows. God, there's too many to count, and we're adding new ones seemingly every week, but it's probably more like every month. So you can find all that over at weirdingwaymedia.com. Mike, thank you so much for joining me as always. This is a blast.
Thank you, Chris.
If we're not enjoying ourselves, why are we doing this? This is fun. This is just fun. And as always, we'll catch you on the next episode.